Hey, oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm so happy that I'm interviewing you, Tara Wagner. Woohoo!
Yeah.
So, welcome to my
Thank
to my domain, my YouTube channel. I've been
thank
really
you.
inactive with this YouTube channel, so it's nice. Hopefully, maybe you'll help me kick off some more interviews with people that have amazing
Yeah.
things to contribute to real people, real solutions. So let me just
Yeah.
introduce you to people and to the world. Is that
Yeah.
Tara Wagner is an amazing business coach. She's my business coach, and I'm currently doing her program, Breakthrough Business Inner Circle. Breakthrough Business Inner Circle is,
Breakthrough
it's a mouthful.
breakthrough boss.
I was gonna say best badass self, and I got my B's confused. But
It's all good. It all works.
her program is amazing, so down to earth. I am so thankful for your program because there's so much stuff out there, and you're just so
Yeah.
personable and it's just wonderful. Your down to earth approach, and you've kind of covered all the bases about how to sanely be an entrepreneur. And
Yeah.
I consider myself a little bit of a challenging client, but you don't. But I do because I think I'm giving you a hard time because I'm doing it differently. But then I'm sure I'm not the first that's doing things differently, right?
No, and that's the thing. Everybody that comes into the breakthrough boss does it differently. And that's why there's so much support because cookie cutters don't work. We are different people with different businesses in different industries with different lifestyles. And yes, some of the tools and strategies and approaches and principles are the same. Those are the things we have lessons on, but the personalization of it is different person to person. It's necessary. And I'm at this point right now where I'm a little frustrated with my own industry because I've been coaching for since 2010, so for a while. And I'm noticing in the industry, people are trying to get away from the personalization, the one-on-one coaching, right? These
Mhm.
are coaches trying not to coach anymore. They're trying to get into courses, they're trying to get into automated things. And that's great. We should have those things. They make it more accessible for people, but we can't take away the thing that makes the difference, which is connection, conversation, the personalization. That's what coaching is about, is asking the good questions and answering the juicy questions so that we can get the better answers. And you don't get that through a cookie cutter approach. So yeah,
So yeah, and thank you for that. So before we get too deep into the content, we're going to be talking
yeah,
about burnout today and
yeah,
everything about how to deal with being an entrepreneur, solopreneur when burnout happens. And I am the poster child for that because I am fried and frizzled and I have been sluggish for a long time. I didn't know I had an autoimmune issue that was a part of the reason. But before we get into all that, let's go into just how did you get into this? How did you
yeah.
find your way into this? What's your background?
So right out of high school, actually, I decided I wanted to do massage. And so I started off as a solopreneur. Just I went to massage school and I had massage clients and I sometimes would work with other businesses, but I was usually working for myself, like subcontracting through them. And then I was like, I can do this. Like I'm good at what I do. That means I'm going to be good at business, which is what most of us do, right? We're good at our skill and we don't realize that running a business is a very different skill. And so I decided to have my own massage therapy company. I had a mobile massage therapy company and very quickly found myself working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, doing God knows what, because I really looking back, I'm like, I don't know how I could have spent that much time on it, especially because so much of what I was doing was ineffective, inefficient, and just slowly burning me out. The biggest challenge for me, and we talk about this in the breakthrough boss, there's a lot of different pieces that lead to burnout, right? The three main categories is it's going to be your mindset, how you're thinking, how you're approaching, what that is doing to, the things you're doing. In my first business, my biggest challenge was mindset. That was my biggest one because it was stopping me from implementing skills or even learning new skills because I thought to go out and get help meant that I wasn't a good business owner, that I was supposed to know myself and learn it all myself. And then the second category is skills, just practical, tangible, things to do, how to do it in an effective way that is not exhausting for you, which is different for everybody. There's different choices that you have to make in that when you're looking at that business plan and setting something up for yourself. And then it's just what I call our success habits, the things you do either personally or professionally that move you towards your version of success. And because everybody's success definition is different, and because everybody's needs are different, that looks different as well. And so my first business, I burned out hard, mostly because I was dragging 1,000 pounds of self-doubt and fear and what will other people think and all this other stuff along with me. And I was also hurting my body and I was working in a way, my business plan was not set up very well. I didn't understand the marketing. I was just putting way too much time and energy into it and getting very little back from it. And that leads to burnout. So I burned out really hard in 2007, started to shut down my business, went back to a solo practice, could only sustain that for about another year and then shut that down completely. Spent a couple years just kind of licking my wounds, doing a lot of personal development, doing a lot of healing, just taking a long, hard look at what happened here, because I am an entrepreneur at heart. So to fail at that, it felt very personal. It wasn't just like, oh, shucks, that didn't work. It was like, who am I? And so I had to do a lot of work. And then over the course of that time, we, it was the recession. We were losing our house. We were on my husband's income. He was in construction. That was shutting down. And we decided we were just going to do something crazy. We were going to get an RV and start traveling. And through the process of doing that, we're blogging it and I'm sharing it. And I started having people reach out to me asking for coaching. Like, how do you do these things? Like, I want to do something like this or something equally terrifying. How do you overcome the fear? How did you do this? And I started realizing oh, wow, okay, all these things that I had to learn and figure out for myself, other people need this. And so I started coaching just on mindset. Did not have any thought that I was going to do business coaching. Even when I started working with business owners, I was like, I want to be the mindset coach for business owners. We have enough business coaches out there. We don't have mindset coaches who really understand business, really understand it on a deep level. And so I started doing that and very quickly started realizing that all of the mindset problems we were solving, the majority of people were getting into new mindset problems because the strategies they were implementing were unhealthy strategies. So they would come at it now with a healthy mindset, but an unhealthy strategy, an unhealthy business plan is going to take you back to an unhealthy place over and over again. Maybe the same unhealthy place or maybe a different unhealthy place. And so then I started slowly getting into, I call myself a reluctant business coach. I started getting into more and more of the okay, here's how you have a healthy mindset, but here's how you have a healthy business as well. And I still don't think of myself as a marketing coach. It's more about how do you approach business? How do you approach marketing? There's a million strategies out there and all of them could work, but you have to know how to discern them. You have to know how to make sure it's going to be the right fit for you, for your audience, for your business, for your goals, for your time and energy. And so I still think of all of the business training and strategy and the really nitty-gritty pieces that we do in the Breakthrough Boss. I still think of it as a mindset program because it's really just teaching people how to think of themselves as a business owner, how to separate themselves from their business, how to make really smart decisions that are going to align with their values and their long-term vision of their life and their goals, and how to organize and create something that's actually going to work for them, not just follow the cookie cutter, or, oh, this coach did this thing and that's how they're making money, is to teach how to do that thing. No, it's okay, that's one possible solution. Is that the right one for me? Let me go through my marketing plan. Let me go through my business. Let me make sure that this aligns, and then implementing those things. So it was a long process. My first business really, it created a lot of problems. It created a lot of the health conditions and the issues that I live with today. I counted it up the other day out of curiosity, and it's 33 different active health conditions that I'm living with. And this year's been the roughest of the rough in all of them. But it was, there's always that saying of like, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And I believe as a coach, anybody who has the teacher or coach gene in them, like that is their gift and what they're supposed to be doing. They tend to get to learn the thing that they get to teach, and they get to learn it on a deeper, harder level than maybe some other people get to learn it, because you got to have the experience, you got to have the empathy and the compassion, you got to understand what people are going through. Otherwise, somebody like I got so frustrated working with coaches who were like, especially mindset coaches who were like, it's all your mindset. You're tired and you're fatigued and you don't feel good because of your mindset. And I'm like, I've got 30 something diagnoses. Yes, my mindset and my stress levels impact that. But also, I can't just tell myself I'm going to go and do this strategy when my body says no. And finding somebody who
Exactly.
understands that.
What a
Mm,
great segue. What a great segue into burnout, right?
yeah,
What a great segue,
yeah,
because you
yeah.
can't ignore when your body is tired. You can't ignore
Right.
when your brain fog is like, this is not happening right now. And you can pull yourself
Exactly.
through a task, but instead of doing it that way, which is so uncomfortable, that's like the old way. And there's all this conditioning
Right.
around pushing yourself to do it and sweat equity and you know but what
Yep.
happened to me recently, after the death of my stepfather, it's just like I became so aware of the pressure that I was putting on myself. And I'm like, I don't want
Yeah.
this on me anymore. I can't work like this. It's not, I mean, and I had
Yeah.
it before my stepfather passed, but after he passed, because I
Yeah.
was in a tender state and just things had shifted, I was more aware of this
Yeah.
pressure and the pace that I put myself in, and how if I have to work this way, how am I ever going to appreciate the work that I'm doing? I want to be in a good place. I want to appreciate what I'm doing and not be like
Exactly.
never satisfied. You want to enjoy the process. So tell us about
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
how to.
So like I think that that's so relevant too, because there's so many people that will say, I just need to make the sacrifices now. Let me just, like you said, the sweat equity, like, let me do the things now and I'll be able to enjoy it later. The problem is that you create a habit, you create a precedent, right? Not just in yourself, but other people, your clients, your customers, they now expect those things. It becomes so much more difficult to make those changes down the road. So it's not like you can just make the sacrifices now and then it'll be fine later. Because even if you could just easily change those habits, which it is not that simple to do when it's so ingrained in you, the chances of you suffering for those choices, the health conditions that you create, the impact that you have on your loved ones, your family. I almost lost my marriage. My son was miserable. My body suffered. Like, it took years to fix the problems that I had created with that mentality, and to get back to a place of not total health. Like, I'm still living with a lot of those conditions today. And I won't say that there's never a time where you don't have to push through a little bit, or there's never a time where you might have a season of like, I'm going to go full force. But it needs to be a season, right? Not like years long, but like months long, like a final push at the end of the year, or, a 90-day challenge that you're doing. And it needs to be so strategic and so careful. And it must have an end date, because if you turn it into a habit, it will not end. It continues to go and continues to go and continues to go. And you will suffer the consequences of that. I make great money now. Do you know how much of it goes to doctor bills? Way too much. Like, it would be amazing if I had learned before, earlier, things to do differently so that I could pace myself.
Yeah, and
And
I have
I wouldn't
to
say
I
that
have
I've
to
got
say,
it.
sorry, no, I just wanted to interject that, my book is largely about the process of ruining your health, because
Yes.
because the emotional aspect of life and the physical aspect of life does
Yeah.
affect your mental state, but it eventually will create the disease, you know? And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope
It's all
that we
connected.
could, I wonder if only the people who it's happening to are the ones that are able to appreciate it, because my prayer is that people like you and I
Yeah.
could reach younger people and say, stop, don't do
Yeah.
it like that. You have to
Yeah.
be in balance in order to be, for the long haul successful,
Right.
not money,
Right.
successful like life. How to win
Yeah.
at life is all about
Exactly.
balance.
Because there's a million ways to make money and make more money. Like there really is. Like if you spend any time online, you can find a gazillion ideas out there. People are making money with the craziest stuff right now, but you cannot make more time. And you can make better health, but it's a lot of work if you've messed it up. So, like, those are the two things. Time is finite. You only have so much of it. You have to be so mindful of what you're doing and how you're doing it. And health is so precarious, so precious, and so fragile right now, especially with our food culture, our stress culture, our work culture, all of the things. We are inundated with ways to be unhealthy,
Yes.
and we are overwhelmed with opportunities to make ourselves sick. And
Oh,
we are not nearly overwhelmed with easy ways to be healthy. It is so much more work to be healthy than it is to be
it's
unhealthy.
counter culture to be into taking care of yourself. It seems
Yeah.
culture
Yeah.
wants your destruction because it's all about
Mm-hmm.
consumerism and with no responsibility, with no responsibility of the people that are selling the Red Bulls and the cigarettes and the vapes and you know, America runs on Dunkin'. Like, how much caffeine can one person have in a day? Like
Right.
obsession with
Right.
productivity, right?
Well,
But people are miserable and sick.
especially though, if you look at the people who are struggling with burnout, most of them do have autoimmune disorders. The majority of them are overachievers. We are pushing and pushing and pushing. We have the passion. We want to push. We enjoy it. We love it in the beginning, but we push and push and push to such an extent that our bodies say no before we do, right? Our body is the one that's like, I can't do this anymore. We can't run at this pace anymore. So we try when we're younger and we think that we can because we're young and we have this wellspring of energy available to us. And then our body just starts talking to us. And if we don't start listening soon enough, it takes more and more to get us back onto that path. And I agree. I think that I'm seeing like two splits. I'm seeing a split of there's still a lot of the hustle culture out there, like rise and grind. You got to just pay your dues and you got to do the hard work. And like I said, there is some truth to that, like for sure. But then I see this other side of things where it's like it should be easy. It should, you shouldn't have to work hard. And always, my mom used to always say the truth is always in the middle. And I always think about that. Like there's truth on both sides. We need to marry the work ethic with the values of play, the values of connection and community and family and whatever else matters
Yes.
to us. We need to marry those things and make sure that we're nurturing all sides of it, including ourselves, so that we can continue to do the work that we love to do.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's I do hope that it's shifting. I feel like it is shifting. I can't tell which way it's shifting. I feel like right now it's sort of like we've taken everything on the plate, thrown it up in the air, and we're still waiting to see where everything
Yeah,
falls.
what's interesting too, I think, is helpful is bringing awareness into, why do I have the beliefs that I do around work? What are my work beliefs? And like,
Right.
I realized that my father is a workaholic, and
Mm-hmm.
that I, with my relationship with him, definitely influenced how I think I should be working, and
Yeah.
having a
Yeah.
perfectionistic way of going about things instead of being more realistic about, this is first of all, I have a completely different business from my father, you know, and it's like, it's a completely different beast. It's a completely different life.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
no way, you know, that my father was definitely a grinder, and I'm, you know,
Yeah.
and it works for him, you know, but he could pull an all-nighter and be fine with it with his work.
Right.
That
There are some
doesn't.
Gary Vees in the world who don't need to sleep, apparently, and I'm slightly jealous of it, but that's not the majority of us. The majority of us, that's going to catch up with us. And I do think disproportionately it catches up with women faster. And I don't know if that's because we've got hormones, more hormones in our body, and those things fluctuate more. There's a lot of theories as to why. I think it's cultural. I think there's some physical things there, but I think as women, we do have to be more mindful of the fact that our bodies are going to be more susceptible. And what a great opportunity, right? Because now we can really, we're in a phase of life and society where we can design what we want this to look like. We have more opportunity available to us than we've ever had before. We have more options and ways of doing things and ways to get creative about doing it than we've ever had before. We have more, you know, resources and knowledge and education to us than we've ever had before, which that in and of itself can burn you out. But it's a great opportunity if we can recognize, okay, this is a time of change. This is going to take some new learning and some growth on my part, but this could lead to something really fantastic and something that could have a ripple effect for generations to come. I feel like we're on the precipice of really amazing, healthy things. It just takes that mindfulness and making sure that we're making the right
So then
decisions.
that makes me wonder, you know, having said all that, right? What are some strategies? I know that you have, it's in your course, right? You have a bonus as the burnout bonus. Is there
Yeah.
anything since you've created it that, you know, if you could summarize it, and then what latest epiphanies, if you have, please share.
Yeah. So like literally every single module in the course is about overcoming burnout because everybody's burnout looks different. Everybody's source of burnout looks different. The recovering from burnout bonus is specifically like, how do you feed your body, right? What do you do for your cells? Because burnout's not just happening emotionally and mentally. It has an impact on your physical body. Your physical body is responding to this. And so I think those things are different as well. For me, what I am finding is that I have to find a really, I found I had to pull in really, really good medical providers, people who had a very balanced view of modern medicine with complementary medicine, who understood when it's the right time to use a medication and when it's not the right time to use a medication. I've been really lucky that because I found those people, I've been able to stay off of medications pretty much until this year. I got COVID
It
the
could
beginning of
be
this year,
very, very
post
challenging to
COVID messed
find.
up.
I'm
It
sorry to
is very
interrupt. It's
challenging.
very challenging nowadays because I feel like
Very,
they're either few and far between or they cost a fortune. And
yes.
and it feels like it's like price gouging in a way, because it's, if you're desperate enough, you'll find a way to pay. But I find, you know,
Right.
it's just really, really challenging. I'm
It
lucky
is.
that my medical provider, she tolerates my complementary medicine
Yeah.
interests, but
Yeah.
some doctors aren't even that open, you know.
They're
But
not. They're
I
not.
agree. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the struggle
No,
is
that's
real there.
it is a real challenge. The thing that I would tell people is look for a functional medicine doctor. They
Yes.
generally do not take insurance. It is generally out of pocket. It is not cheap. It is worth it, but interview them. Find all of them that you can find and go through an interview process and
And
get
make sure that your food
quotes from them.
way of
They should be
eating
able
is
to give you
compatible
that.
too. Because I had an experience with a
Yes.
functional medicine doctor, and I just did not resonate at all with their dietary
Yep.
suggestions. You know, so these
Yep.
little things, it's
You
like, yes,
really have
interview
to.
your providers 100%.
Yep. Interview them. Don't, I think as at least in the US, we have the tendency to just think we have to accept what we can find, right? Because that's just kind of the mentality of like your doctor says it, therefore you do it. And I don't have that mentality. Like I just was born without that trait. So I'm like, no, you work for me and I don't like you, so you don't work for me anymore. So I go through and I interview people and I go in with very clear ideas of this is what I'm looking for in their demeanor. This is what I'm looking for in their knowledge. This is what I'm, like if I bring up an idea, I want to see how they're going to respond to me. If they respond to me in a way that's like, oh, you shouldn't be Googling that, you're not my people. Because I want somebody who's going to empower me to want to educate myself and then further my education and help me, get better at learning and parsing information that I find online. Because we're never going to stop Googling things. That's just silly. The other thing that I found is outside of functional medicine, try to find a DO, an osteopathic doctor. These are doctors that are generally more naturally minded, but they are used to working with in the medical field, working with insurance. They're usually much more accessible and affordable. It took me a long time also to find a good DO, but like once you find them, the great thing about that is they can do the in-depth testing that you're going to need to figure out what does my body need at this point. If I'm going through burnout, if I'm already there, your body is unique and it's going to be telling you certain things. They need to look at your hormone levels, your thyroid, they need to look at your digestive system, they need to look at your supplements. Like, what are your nutritional levels? Are you deficient on anything? All of those things are going to be unique to you.
And it's so important to differentiate because regular doctors will say, oh, you need to go to a GI specialist, and they send you off to a separate
Right.
doctor for that. And then they do their tests, and oh, now you need to go to a dermatologist for that. And it's like they all have root causes here, and DOs, functional medicine
Right.
doctors, they get that, and they're not going to send you off all over the place,
Right.
wasting your time and energy.
Right. Yeah. Unless it is like absolutely necessary.
Of
And if they
course.
do, what I would ask them is, do you collaborate with those doctors? Do you, look at those tests that another doctor might do? Because for me, I want one person that I can go to. I can't mentally parse out the information or handle the information from multiple doctors. I'll go and do the sleep study. I'll go and talk to the neurologist, but I want to come back to you and look over those findings, or have you talk to that doctor and work together to find a path forward. So really advocating for yourself, remembering that you are the client, you're the customer, you pay them,
Right.
they work for you, not the other way around, and making sure that you're building a team. And if that might mean a therapist, that might mean an acupuncturist, that might mean a massage therapist, that might mean a BFF that once a month you go out and you go for a hike together and you just like talk about all of your things, like whatever is going to meet your needs and help you to feel better on any level, build that for yourself, because it's crucial and we don't do enough of it.
So I'm sitting here wondering, and I'm not asking you to answer this question, but like over 30 diagnoses, like now I have to list
Yeah.
out the issues that I have and I wonder how many. But maybe when we're not recording, you can give me, I'm so curious. Like,
I probably should have written them down because I literally, like, I went through it and I think I came up with 30 and then I remembered three more over the next day because
wow,
some of them are to varying degrees. Like for instance, I have asthma. It does not bother me that much because of the things that I do and the way that I take care of myself, but it can still flare up mildly at some times. And I have natural ways, I'm lucky that I don't necessarily have to use my inhaler, although I carry one just in case. But it's a lot, and it goes from autoimmune and chronic illnesses to disabilities and chronic injuries and things like that. And a lot of the symptoms are the same, right? It's just various different types of pain, inflammation, fatigue.
right, right,
So I don't necessarily think of it all as a separate thing,
right.
because when I look at it all, so much of it, like a lot of my physical structural problems are related to one thing. And there's just a few things I need to do to keep it managed. I need to stay mobile. I need to stay active. I need to be exercising, and I need to make sure I'm not physically overdoing it or doing something that would be hard for my body. Like I'm not going to go bungee jump in or something, because that would just ruin my body. You know, little things like that, you get into a mode of like thinking about it differently. So when I actually did the list and counted it all out, I was like, oh my gosh, like, it's a lot sometimes. And
It is a
this
lot. It is a
especially
lot, but it's also like
difficult.
what is symptomatic of something else. Like
Exactly.
if you were
Exactly.
to cross off the ones that were just symptoms, but then you don't even,
Exactly.
sometimes it's hard to tell, of course, you know, but like adrenal
Right.
fatigue and hypothyroidism really go
Right.
hand in hand, you know? So, you know,
Exactly.
but in our culture, man, we have
Exactly.
been
And that's
used
how
to
I feel about it too. You know, getting a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, I'm like, that's just what they call it when they don't know the root cause.
exactly, exactly.
So like that's where
Inflammation.
I focus. Exactly. I focus on how am I feeling? What am I needing? What can I do to meet those needs? And we talk about that in the breakthrough boss. It's if you focus on that, what's happening? How am I feeling? What am I needing? What can I do to meet those needs? Doesn't matter the situation you're talking about. If you're talking about your health, if you're talking about a conflict with another person, if you're talking about organizing your to-do list or procrastinating on something you need to do, if you go through that, you'd be surprised how many times that alone can solve the problem, because everything we are doing, even the stuff we don't like, is an attempt to meet our needs. And so if we just focus on what am I needing, what are those underlying needs, what can I do in this situation to meet those needs, because it might be different day to day. If we go about just focusing on getting our needs met, we feel good and we can
That's
do
what I
better.
think the shift is. And I think that the shift that I'm speaking of is internal awareness guiding your direction and the pace. And
Yes.
it's all an inside guidance that
Yeah.
it used to be. And that, I guess, what, you know, when you were saying about one side or the other, it's like one's external and one's internal, you know, and it's almost that way where it's like the external is like, you got to do it according to this way because that will keep things in motion, and then the other is an
Right.
inside, it's an inside job. And you know,
Yeah.
I guess there's harmony there, but I'm just like I'm finding my way also. So sorry, I
Yeah. Yeah. No, you know, it's funny when I didn't really think about this, but my dad died in '07, which was right after I closed my business and went to a solo practice for a year. And I really that was a big part of my kind of wake up call, right? Because when you go through something like that, your worldview shifts. You start to really question things. What matters? What doesn't matter?
exactly.
What are my values? What was this person guys? What did they teach me? What did they not teach me? You see things so differently that you have to make changes. If you don't make those
Exactly.
changes, you're liable to either explode or just fall into a hole and just, you know, end up depressed because you're not listening.
It's
Life
like
is teaching you and you're not paying
this,
attention.
that if you don't listen to your intuition, it will be your downfall. And I
Mhm.
think culturally, I don't know if it's, I'm biased, but it seems to me there's this siding with the feminine attribute of being guided purely by intuition. And
Right.
when that happens, you could really get in tune with what
Yeah.
you need and what, and how everybody gets what they need, not necessarily what they want, but what they need from you, you know.
Right. Right. And but the thing is if people get what they need, it eventually becomes what they want, because we only want the things that are going to meet our needs. So we may want it in a certain way and we may not get it in that certain way, but if this other way meets the need, we're still happy. We still got the need met. Like all of our emotions are created from those needs. Everything we do is an attempt to meet those needs. If those needs are met in some other way, as long as we're paying attention to the fact that like, oh, okay, actually my needs are met, like I'm feeling good. If we're not focusing on the wrong thing, like people get on board with it faster than you realize. It doesn't mean that there's not a messy middle, right? Like if you're making big shifts in your life, other people's habits and beliefs have to shift, and they don't like that because they didn't sign up for it. Like, we're going through the transformation, we're making all these changes, and that's naturally going to ripple out to other people and force them to examine things or change things or grow with it or whatever. And it's just the messy middle. And as long as we try as much as we can to be patient and compassionate and understanding that they're going to be a few feet behind us because we're leading the charge on that, it comes together. Either the wrong people will fall out of our life because they just are not on board, or it's not a match anymore, or the right people will catch up.
Mhm. Amen. We're both massage therapists in our past, which is I find really interesting. Yeah, I didn't know
That
that.
is really interesting. I
Yeah,
think it's a tendency to want to help other people, right? And to like touch lives.
yeah.
And
Well, the reason why I got into
physically,
it
I just couldn't
actually,
do that.
yeah,
In
well,
that way.
the reason why I got into it at all was because I thought that it would be a really relaxing environment to work in, and that I
Yeah.
would be listening to music and we didn't have to talk very
Yeah.
much. You know, I
Right.
I loved the idea of a low stress environment. And then of course, when I was in
Yeah.
private practice in 2016, I was burning the candle at both ends for years and years and years. And then
Yep.
when COVID hit, I was like, cool, I need a break anyway,
Yep.
and COVID closed my practice and I haven't looked back. And
Yeah.
but it was ironic because what I had in me that was unresolved was an imbalanced drive that did not
Mhm.
consider self-care. And I really
Yeah.
hurt myself as a result.
Yeah.
But now,
Yeah.
hopefully it's not too much damage done, but whatever it is, it is, I honor my journey.
Exactly. Exactly. We can't change our past. We can only learn from it, look at it, be honest about it, and move forward with it. And I think that one of the things that I have found that I don't necessarily love, but I keep learning it anyway, is that you do keep learning the same lessons from different levels, right? It's like the learning spiral. You feel like you are coming back around to the same topic. Like, well, I've already done this, I've already learned this. Why am I here again? But you're actually moving up and up and up this spiral. You're looking at the same topic, but from a very different angle. And that was really my wake up call this year. I built a business that didn't burn me out, and I specifically built it around the idea that I have health conditions. I need to be able to not work sometimes. And then this year ended up getting post COVID, and it put me out. Not a lot of people know this, but I was like in and out of bed for a couple months. I was barely doing anything, barely functioning, like barely physically functional. And because all of those conditions flared up, that's what post COVID syndrome is doing for a lot of people. It's flaring up any weak point in their body. Well, that was my whole body. And so here I was learning again to pace myself in a very different way. Now it was like, I can't do anything but the bare minimum. I can meet with clients, I can do our group calls. That was like the main things I was doing. Everything else was off my plate. Like, if I had 5 minutes and I could do it with one hand, maybe I would do it with my phone. But it was like learning to slow down. I was like, I thought I already knew how to slow down. I didn't think this would be that big of a deal. I structured my business to allow for things like this. But still, when it happened, it was like, this sucks. I want to go. I want to move. I don't want this to happen. All of this resistance coming up. And I was there again, like, okay, you get to learn this again. And I begrudgingly, I have this little voice in the back of my head that is wiser and smarter than me, that will always remind me of the things that I need. I don't always listen to her if I'm in that really bad place. People think if you're a mindset coach, you don't have really bad places. Just because I have tools doesn't mean I don't need to use them.
Yeah,
It
you're
also doesn't mean
human.
I always use them when I should.
If let me tell you
So
something.
I
If health coaches or any kind of coach meant that they didn't have bad days or struggles, like
Right.
everybody would be one. Maybe that's why there's a popularity of them, because that's a total baloney, though. Like, we're all
It
human. We all have
it
our struggles.
exactly. Exactly. Just because you have tools doesn't mean you don't need support. You're a human being and things are messy. And that was a big part of my reminder through that spring was like, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be feeling this way about it. Like everything that was happening, I had resistance around, and then I had resistance and frustration around all the emotions I was having over it. So it's like these layers of problems that I was adding to it. But it became this process of like, look, you have always known that you get to learn what you get to teach. You're here to help other people, and you get to get really good at learning and understanding what that's like. And when I finally just let go and was like, okay, it is what it is. I cannot push, I cannot force, I cannot, my body is saying no, like absolutely 100% no. And you got to understand, like I was bad, like I was covered head to toe rash. I could only eat 10 foods that I wasn't having allergic reaction to. Like it was, my whole system was like no to everything. It was like water, a couple foods, and a lot of sleep, and that was about it for 2 or 3 months. We let go of everything. I let go of the YouTube channel. You know, I was creating weekly videos that had to stop. I was, doing all these different things, and it was just like, okay, maybe this is exactly what needs to happen for the next phase and the next step and the
Absolutely.
next thing we get to do. And I would think back to the time when I lost my dad, or the time that I closed the business, or like all these other challenges that I hated at the time that were so painful that I resisted and I didn't want it. And I reminded myself that when I let go and I surrendered to what was, then what could be could finally come into fruition.
And I just
And I
wanted to
think that's
add
where
to
we're
that.
at as a society and a culture
Yeah,
right now.
I just wanted to add to that because I've been going through my own dark night of the soul, I guess you could say, but it's quite, maybe not
Mhm.
quite so dramatic. But the idea that we do as a culture, we value and praise clarity as the end all be all. But the only way you get to clarity is from confusion. And there has to be the process and the phase of, I
Yeah.
don't know what's next. I know that this needs
Yeah.
to change, or change has been thrust upon me, right? But there's this, and it's something that come to me recently because I've been suffering from a lot of brain fog. And I'm like,
Mm.
I can't really think ahead right now, And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't need to, because everything's coming. It's okay for me to be exactly where I'm at. And that's
Yeah.
really, it's really important to give
It is.
people, cut yourself some slack and give yourself the
Mhm.
rest, and then just honor where you are at. Like that resistance
Yeah.
of hating where you're at, it really is stressful, to put it simply.
Yeah.
It's
And
stress.
and just for anybody who's listening who's like, yeah, but how do you do that? I will say, here is how I did it. When I caught myself going that down that path, having those thoughts, having those emotions, sometimes the only thing I could do was distract myself from them. So I would watch something funny or lighthearted, or a sci-fi or fantasy movie, something that was completely outside of my reality, because it would break the habit of going down that path, right? Then once I had broken away from that path, broken my focus, then I could start reminding myself, right? So when we say stuff like, trust the process, okay, well, how do you trust the process? It's not a tangible thing you're doing, but the tangible piece is reminding yourself on a regular basis, I need to trust the process, let go, trust the process, let go, trust the process. And it's not something you can describe, it's not something you can teach, but the practices of little things like that, redirecting your thoughts, redirecting yourself when your emotions start to spin out of control. I spent a good couple of months of like, okay, the best I can do right now is watching funny dog videos on TikTok and reading fantasy books, and sleeping. And I was just like, that's where I'm at. The next level I can get myself to is just kind of detaching from those negative things that are going to take me down a negative path. And then when I'm in a neutral place, then I can remind myself of the things that I need to remember. Then I can maybe work on something else, or moving myself kind of
So
up that emotional
you bring
ladder.
up an
But it is,
interesting dynamic for your own, like your, I look at my life and I go, I can't, I mean, unless I had an injury that really knocked me out of commission, I can't afford to spend days and days in bed and do that sort of thing. And a lot of people can't. So, what would you recommend
yeah,
for people who, they're burnt out and they can't take a week off to
yeah,
recharge their batteries, you know?
yeah. I think that's a great question. And I am very upfront with people when I say I designed my business because I knew that that was coming at some point. I didn't know when, but I knew I had these health conditions and I knew I needed to be prepared. So what I would say is if you don't have that and all of a sudden it hits you, what do you have? What can you do? And it's different for everybody, but you have to look around and you have to say, number one, what do I need to say no to, even if it's going
Right.
to be painful, even if it's
Exactly.
going to piss some people off, even if it's going to hurt me. Like the hardest no I ever say is to myself. I have
Right.
no problem saying no to other people. No to my own ideas is painful, but you have to be brutal with yourself, sometimes brutal with other people. What can you take off your plate? What can you uncommit from? Even if it maybe hurts a little bit, what can you sacrifice on? What are your non-negotiables? Like, so for me, sleep and good food is a non-negotiable. Well, when I was laid up, my husband's in his busy season, good food was hard to come by. I can't just go to the grocery store. I'm allergic to everything. And so if I had an hour of energy, my number one priority was what can I make enough of to put in the freezer, right? Like you look for what you can do and you look for what you can take off your plate. You take the sacrifices where you can take the sacrifices, even if it hurts a little bit, so that you can focus on and prioritize what you can focus on and prioritize.
Right.
And it may not be great. It may not
So
be
like
pretty. It may
one
not
of
be
the one
perfect.
of my favorite examples is to, let the dishes sit in the sink, let the laundry pile up another day or two. If you are out of steam, let
Yeah.
yourself lay down,
Yeah.
let yourself
Yeah.
recharge, let yourself
Oh my
take a
gosh.
nap,
Lisa, that was such a huge eye opener for me. And I'm embarrassed to say that it took me to this year to realize that if I start to get tired, instead of trying to hurry up and finish up work before I get tired and then taking the rest of the day off, if I just stop and lay on the couch for an hour, I usually get up from that couch feeling like I'm not tired anymore. And that sounds so simplistic, but it was this huge eye opening moment of like, actually, if I stop before it becomes a problem and treat it as though it's already a problem, like stop, lay down, I'm going to pretend like I can't move anymore. I'm going to scroll on TikTok. That's been my like zone out place lately. If I do that, I'm recharging my batteries. I don't have to hurry up and get everything done and then feel like crap for the rest of the day and recharge my batteries when I go to bed at night. You can actually like stop and plug in the middle of the day. That was such a aha moment for me. But it's little things like that that people need to examine. We need to
that's
examine
something
what are
that I'm
our
learning to
our
give myself
subconscious.
permission for. It's not an easy task for people who have
It's not.
a drive. It's really challenging to say stop, step
Yeah.
away from the computer,
Yep.
or if you're working a
Here's
job too, like if you're working a traditional job,
yeah,
you have to say, I am going to sit on my ass for
right,
a while when I'm home,
right.
and I'm not
Yeah,
gonna care about anything else, or like
yeah,
once you got the kids set up on their homework, that you can go and get
yep.
yourself a walk, whatever.
And what I tell people is if you're good at overachieving, put self-care on your to-do list because you get all those things done. So put it on your to-do list, time block it. Oh, wait, from 1 to 2, I have an appointment with my couch. And then the other thing that I always tell them is remind yourself that you are going to be more efficient and more effective when those things have been done, so
Yes.
that you know that you're not just putting them off, because your mind will say I'm going to put it off or I'm not going to want to get back into it. And that is true. If you're really tired, sometimes you're not going to want to get it back into it. Your body's going to say, F you, I want to keep sleeping. That might be a thing that you need to work out, right? Like you might just need more sleep. You might need to take those naps, and you might need to make some sacrifices in order to prioritize that. But just keep reminding yourself, if I recharge, even if it takes me a couple months to recharge, when I am recharged, I can do these things more efficiently. And I kept reminding myself that of this spring, I can catch up when I feel better, because when you feel good, you're more efficient, more effective. I'm going to be able to probably get there just as fast if I stop and recharge first than if I'm, burning out all along the way. So those constant reminders are really important, and putting it on your to-do list is a really helpful hack, because we're overachievers. How often do we not cross things off our to-do list? Like
Yep.
if it's on there, it's getting crossed off.
Yep. I mean, I loved the time blocking thing, and I was in the habit of using it a little bit here and there for my appointments, but I
Yeah.
started doing, like, I use it for everything now, rest, read, rehydrate, and it's at 7:30 in the morning, and I'm doing my meditation or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
it's been helpful.
I find that we go through seasons with time blocking. Like some people will, I started out being like very free spirit. I don't want to have a time block, to realizing that that was creating a lot of my chaos. And so I went into like hyper time blocking mode, which was really helpful for a while. And then I got into a mode of like, okay, I want to create some structure with my time blocks. So now it's like from 8 to 4, I'm working on this project, but I'm not going to necessarily time block everything that's happening in there. I just know that I have this structure set aside. Or from, this time to this time, it's a free for all. I can do whatever I want as long as it's self-care and not business related, right? So it's important, like, because I love time blocking. I think it's a very important tool, but most people come to me and they're like, it doesn't work for me. And I'm always telling them it does, but you have to use it in the way that works for you. And it looks different for different people. So for some people, it's time blocking in very small increments. For some people, it's time blocking in big increments, which is more like time batching. For some people, it is, I'm just going to create time blocks that keep me like within the structure that I want to have. So for instance, one of my time blocks is if I have a doctor's appointment, I always schedule it at the time that I want to stop working, right? So that I have to stop working because I have somewhere to go, or I have a call to be on, or whatever. I create those time blocks to help me create a structure that makes it hard for me to break my own rules. So, and then also creating different versions of the same time block. Like if you're going to time block a week, well, our weeks don't always look the same. Create an ideal week, create a everything hit the fan week, create a week I don't have a lot of energy, or a week that the kids are out of school. Like have different versions so that when that week comes up, you're not scrambling trying to figure out what to do. You're just moving into option 2 or option 3 instead of your
I'm
right.
in the habit of taking my Sunday. My Sunday
Yeah.
afternoon is about planning the week ahead. That
Yeah.
really, really helps me,
Yeah.
because if I don't do that, it's chaos on
Yeah.
Monday and all week.
Yep.
So yeah,
Amen. And sometimes it only
prioritization.
takes 5 or 10 minutes to just look for conflicts. What's going to be a problem? Do I have enough white space? That's my big one. Do I have
That's
enough white
huge.
space on my calendar where
Yeah,
nothing is scheduled, or enough white space in my business hours in case things take longer than I expect?
yeah,
And I mean, that was a big shift for me too, not trying to fill all the space,
yeah,
but trusting that,
yeah.
things happen, things come up, the
I
space is
think
going to get filled.
having three things is plenty.
Ooh,
Three
yeah,
things, if you're an entrepreneur or, working for yourself, if you're self-managed, three
yeah,
things to
yep,
do. That's it. You can
amen.
always add more things, but you don't need more than three things,
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly. Oh, and that's the thing to keep in mind. Like people think like, well, if I'm only doing 3 things, I'm not going to get ahead. You're going to be surprised how much more efficient you are and how much more progress you make when you force yourself to focus on fewer things, because your brain is not so overwhelmed that you can't think straight. It gets done better, so it's more
Right.
effective. And then if you finish it and you've got more time, great. You can work ahead into next day's 3 things. You can like give yourself a Friday off because you're able to work ahead. But taking that time pressure off of us makes us so much more productive.
Anything else you want to share
Yeah.
before we
Oh, girl. I mean, literally, we could talk about this for days,
I know it's
not even playing.
good stuff. I think women naturally, overload themselves,
Yeah.
and I mean, most people, I mean, I don't know who listens, who watches my videos, or, not that I have a very small, audience, if, but I really very much identify with the struggles of being a woman, and there's this pressure of having to, and I hate the word now, I hate the word multitask, and
Yeah.
I can have my attention on one thing at a time and I could do things in tandem, but I cannot multitask and I will not multitask anymore because it's exhausting.
No, it's not good for our brains.
Mm-mm.
Not always. Sometimes it can be. And I think as women, we have a better tendency or we have a better skill for that or aptitude for that. But we're hitting our tipping point. We're at a place and a time where we're inundated with thoughts, ideas, posts, videos, emails, offers, sales, problems, news. Like we have more and more data, just data, good, bad, and neutral coming into our brains than we've ever had before. And our brains are still ancient. Like it can't keep up with society and the culture that we have now, and we're frying our brains.
Yeah.
And I really think that is a big contributor to burnout, especially over the last couple of years when there's just been so much more and we're so much more connected, like we're watching the news and so many things are happening and our brain just cannot keep up. And I think if there's one thing that anybody could do to help them through burnout is to unplug from as many things as you can unplug from, delete
Yes.
as many apps as you can delete, turn off your notifications, put your phone on silent, like just kind of go dark for a little while, and then slowly cultivate the environment that you want. Because when you take a good long, like let's say a couple weeks from social media, which sounds radical to a lot of people, but I'm like, I could do that, no problem. Like I could do that and not even realize I'm doing it. But when you do that, you take the break and then you come back into it, you're going to very quickly feel the difference. You're going to like notice it in your body
Yeah.
where the friction is and where the static is and where the stress is. And then you'll be able to cultivate things better. So then you might go through and you say, okay, I sometimes do like Instagram, but let me cultivate my feed. Let me go through and unfollow things that are not working
Right.
for me. Let me go through, like I'm loving TikTok because the algorithm like is so trainable. Like let me train TikTok that I want to see fun video. I want to see dogs doing silly things. I want to see positive thoughts. I want to see people, like complimenting strangers on the streets. Like you can train it to do that. I don't think we realize that we need to cultivate the environment that feeds us. And there's nothing to feel guilty about there. We think that we have to know everything and be involved in everything. You can't. You are one person. Choose the things that matter most to you. Find a way to stay involved in those things or in the loop on those things that does not inundate you or overwhelm you, because you will do nobody good if you cannot process what's happening and your body's shutting down from it. Cultivate the environment that serves you and feeds you, because that's the only way that you can do anything of value for anybody else. It is not selfish to put boundaries and blinders on. It is selfish not to do those things, because you're robbing from yourself and you're robbing from the people whose lives you are here to touch, whether
Mhm.
that's family or clients or customers.
That's beautiful. And
Thank
I really appreciate that. And I think this is a great way to close too, because to me, this
you.
information overload is just, it's a real problem. And I suffer from, curiosity in social media, and I just let me just scroll a little more, like please. And
It's
I wanted
addicting.
to let you know that there's a statistic out there, and now I'm going to probably have to research it and to find it and to share it, and I'll tag you, that
Yeah.
the information that one human takes in 1 day is equivalent to the lifetime of a person 100 years ago, right? So the new information that you take in 1 day, right? So like I love the idea. And when you were telling me about like wiping the slate clean, I'm visualizing cleaning out your room, painting it white, leave all the crap out
Yeah.
there for a period of time
Yeah.
and figure out what do I really need,
Yeah.
and becoming a
It's
minimalist
like decluttering a
for
closet.
your peace of mind.
Yeah.
And the thing is this, there's this chaos, there's a call for chaos in our culture, and what
Yeah.
really only gives us peace is calmness. And we
Yeah.
call in more calm. And so thank you so much for this. It's been really, really fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Please find that information. I think
I gotta find
it makes
it.
total sense, and it makes sense to me why some people are having such a hard time keeping up with changes or evolving with the times, because yeah, if it used to be decades for us to evolve into a new idea, and now we have to do it moment by moment, it's no wonder our brains are frazzled. It's like a computer with 1,000 tabs open. That thing is frozen. You're
Yes.
just stuck.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Simplify our lives. Thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely. I will say
So,
this for anybody who is in a business, because this can feel like a big, gigantic ball of Christmas lights, from Christmas Vacation, where he pulls out the ball of Christmas lights and it's all tangled up. If that's the way it feels, I have a checklist that they can get, and I'll give you the link to put below the video, that literally just goes through and you can check off the things that are like, okay, this is good, this is good, this is good. And then you can look at, okay, what's left? Those are the areas that I need to focus on. Generally speaking, one at a time. And for the most part, I tried to put it in order of priority importance.
I
So
love it.
somebody can go through that checklist and kind of untangle that ball for themselves and figure out, where do I need to start in order to start, dealing with this burnout myself. But I will say this, if you are already super burned out, you start on the physical level. Start with sleep, start with feeding your body, start with figuring out if there's any underlying conditions, because many times there are. Really nurture your body in a way you haven't before, and put it on your to-do list. Make it a business task.
Yep. Thank you. So,
You're
would
very
you like to
welcome.
share? I guess that we'll share your contact information in the description. Like you'll just send me what you
Yeah,
need, and I'll put it in the description, and
perfect.
we'll go from there.
Perfect.
Thank you, Tara.
Awesome.
You're amazing. I'm so
Thank you.
excited we had this
This
time
was,
together.
this was such a good conversation. I love it. I
All right.
love juicy conversations like this. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm going to say goodbye. Bye. Hold on.